Okay, and we're live now.
Woohoo!
Hello to, there's one person in the chat so far. Yeah, so we're new to live streaming.
Yeah,
still,
this is only our second.
So bear with us.
No.
Wow, I'm honored. Number 2. This is good. Yeah. I feel like Buzz Aldrin.
You are second, yes, sir. You are our second guest. And if I may ask, out of curiosity, how do you pronounce your name? Is it Kamran or Kamran?
Cameron is good. Kamran Pasha is good for me.
Okay.
Okay, cool. So we're probably going to jump into the craziness that's been going on Twitter today, which is interesting. Before we do, I want to actually just say something, and I'm not going to say the name because I don't want to get in trouble I don't want to be smited by YouTube. But a certain high-profile celebrity whose initials are A and H decided that they would block me today. I found out randomly. Don't know why. Why specifically
Have you
me?
been interacting with AH before?
No,
yes,
not really.
like maybe a month ago, like once or twice.
In a quote tweet.
And then suddenly today someone posted it, and I'm looking at it, and I'm like, I can't read it. What's going on? And I go on it, she's blocked me for no reason.
Is this the AH that is in conflict with someone with the name initial JD?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay. Well, I've been very public about my support of JD, so take that as a blessing. I blocked AH myself because I don't want this person's vibe in anywhere in my cosmos. So.
Me neither. I was like confused. I'm like, did I block her? No, she blocked me.
Badge of honor right there.
Don't know why. I'll take it. I'll take it as a badge of honor.
I mean, maybe it's personal. Maybe it's a blockchain. I haven't checked to see if she blocked me. I don't care.
Or she's just crazy.
That's a given.
I would only say this. I don't know either of these people personally, but I know a lot of people that know them very well. And so from the very beginning, I was told a lot of things about that situation that made me side immediately with JD. And then I will only say this with regard to AH. Several people I know who've worked directly with this person have used the same exact word when they've described them. They said pure evil. I mean, that's shocking to me that these different people in the industry who've worked with this person have said that to me. The only person who's ever said a good thing about that person to me is somebody whose judgment I already knew was like, this person is always wrong about everything. So whenever they say someone is bad, that person's probably good. Whenever someone is good, the person's probably bad. So that just confirmed it for me.
Yeah, pretty much.
Yeah, but it was really interesting. I was just like, wait, what? Why?
Although we were laughing about that all morning.
But it was fun. No. But we have
weren't you followed by Gina Carano until you got it positive? You got Gina follows you, right?
Yeah, that's true. That's true. Mm-hmm. Not sure if I deserve it, but
you totally deserve it, love.
Gina's very, 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 very selective about who she follows. She's got like 1 million fans.
We know.
Yeah, I know. I don't know if I'm personally the one who deserved it or not, but I'll take it.
Oh, come on, you will totally earn that follow.
All right, we have the Great One is here saying good evening, Master Raven and Cameron. So
hello, the Great One.
Welcome, Great One.
All right, and it seems like we got a couple people here, so cool.
Yay!
All right,
let's jump right in. I've let people know on my Twitter about that we're on, and hopefully others will join in, and hopefully others will watch the live stream, the recording afterwards.
Yeah. Yes. All right, let me add this in here. So
yeah,
let's see.
Can everybody see the screen?
Yeah, I can see the screen.
So yeah, apparently, so this is where I found out about it. But look, if you go here to this tweet, this tweet doesn't exist.
Dun dun dun.
Because that was the one where he was like going nuts about Trump.
He's begun deleting. Okay.
Well, look here. There was this. He was attacking people, and he was also whatever. And apparently, he's deleted it. And Matthew Kennedy said, to anyone Indiana Jones fan with the ability to point out, Steven Spielberg's not directing, Kathleen Kennedy's producing, Harrison Ford's 78 years old, written by Jonathan Kardashian, who wrote Solo, and of course Mangold's just getting really upset about it.
Yeah,
but
for no real reason.
Look, I don't understand why
I remember that tweet that Mr. Cage said. I mean, Matthew's a friend. I remember the tweet he sent out. It's the opinion of a lot of people. And it's a concern of a lot of people, and so Mr. Mangold decided to respond to that.
Yeah, he did. And then when Ryan quote tweeted him, he of course responded to Ryan and said, "Let me get this right, Ryan. You can spurg about me, but I'm supposed to stay silent while you do it and bait clicks because Lucasfilm." and not random timelines. The same timeline the dude spurging about my film. And of course, I came back with,
why would you feel the need to go around and attack the same fans you were trying to market to? Why not make a good movie and prove us wrong? Unless, of course, you aren't confident enough in your product.
It's a fair point. I mean, it's the reaction is a very oversensitive reaction. As someone that feels like a nerve was hit, right? On those points. And, it's unfortunately we're back at that place that I thought we got away from, but we're back there of filmmakers attacking fans, and this is this weird, ugly cultural thing that never works out. It never ends well.
And once again, it's from Lucasfilm.
Well,
Filth.
You know me and my history with them.
Yeah, I just call them Lucasfilm now.
Again. Like all these, I was pushed off. I believe that I was booted off of social media by Lucasfilm, 3 months ago, because I made some very specific critiques, and then I got pulled. And then I came back in another resurrected form, and then the same thing that happened then is happening now with strange, random accounts coming up. Accounts that have been created just purely for me to attack me. And they always talk about Lucasfilm. I'm like, you guys got nothing better to do?
I don't know, but I've seen those accounts. I've seen them attacking you, and it's weird because it's like I get it. They're like trying to be go for maybe anonymity or whatever, but
they're not going about it well.
It's weird. They're
not good at it. I mean, it's obvious who they are. They're not good at it, right?
One of them's literally named Pablo.
And he has a Mr. Potato Head. And that only makes me think about, Al from Al's Toy Barn in Toy Story 2, who looks like Pablo Hidalgo. So,
and vice versa.
All right, we have also DeBoss Official in the chat.
Hello, DeBoss.
Hey there, man. Hi, long time no see. He was a YouTube friend of mine from
way back when.
Way back before I got run off the platform for a bit, which was fun.
No, it wasn't.
No, but it's a story for another time.
Yeah.
But so apparently he's just going into this, and apparently he's just attacking everybody. Where was he saying? He was saying down here, I've enjoyed past work. I'm skeptical. Sorry to hear that. He's just nuts. And he hasn't blocked me, surprisingly. But he's still going at it.
Well, the day's still young. So, this is what this suggests to me, if I may give you my insight. Just, I don't know the man, but just my insight about behavior 20 years in Hollywood, right? This suggests to me two things. One is that he is insecure about his film, and that these critiques are hitting deep insecurities that he has about whether the film's going to make it, number one, okay? Number two, the fact that he referenced Lucasfilm very specifically, I mean, this is all about Lucasfilm, in my opinion, is collapsing behind the scenes, despite all the recent drama in the fandom where people are saying it, and whatever. In my opinion, Lucasfilm is falling apart behind the scenes, and I think Miss Kennedy is being honored her way out, right? And that is the reason for this kind of very emotional reaction, is that the future of Lucasfilm is at stake right now, and it's in question, which could ultimately mean the future of his movie. Because just because they're going out of their way to show, pictures on set with Harrison Ford and Miss Kennedy's there and whatever, doesn't mean the movie's going to get finished. Doesn't mean the movie's going to get distributed. It doesn't mean that it's going to be good if it does any of those, right? And if the production company is collapsing, the studio's collapsing, it's not a good situation.
Hasn't this movie been on the shelf for 5 years now?
Yeah, because they don't have a story. They don't know what to do. Yeah. They don't know what to do, and Spielberg left. I mean, all of Matthew's critiques are fair. I mean, they're fair. The audience loves this character in this franchise, and was smacked by the last one because we're like, what the hell is this? The Crystal Skull, right? I mean, what is this? So already losing faith, and that was with the original. That's what Spielberg can't figure this out. Who are these? Are these characters going to figure it out? And so we're in a nervous place as fandom, as people who love this character and will buy, merchandise about this character if it's done well. So this reaction strikes me as someone who is getting a lot of calls all day long about the political situation inside of Disney, inside of Lucasfilm, and is very concerned for their project and for their career and their reputation. And then this thing just hit a nerve, because that comment about Lucasfilm, that's very specific. There's no reason for Mangle to bring that up.
Yeah, I know one thing they can do. not make the movie.
Well, they won't do that.
Obviously.
Yeah,
Wishful
but he's
thinking.
afraid of that. He's afraid that if the situation continues to unravel, this thing might get, this. Remember what happened to Solo. Remember what happened to Solo? 80% of the movie shot, and the director gets fired. And so it's if there's more chaos in Lucasfilm, he could be 80% of the way through this movie, and then they replace him for random crazy reason, right? And so he's afraid. That's the vibe I'm getting as a person in the industry. That's the vibe from those reactions. They're not the reactions of somebody who's focusing on doing a movie right now.
Yeah, but I hate when they do this because I don't understand these people at this point. One of the things that bothers me is I can't believe they're being this stupid on purpose. Because I want to not believe that. But they know that attacking fans and doing this stuff only gets them people getting mad at them. And their fictional audience that they seem to continue to try and acquire has not materialized. It doesn't exist. And yet they continue to spite the fans, behave like children. They're spoiled little children.
Don't insult little children.
Vying for mommy Kathleen's attention.
Don't insult spoiled little children, dear.
Yeah, well, this is because I've talked about this on other channels, other live streams. This is the devolution of the culture since I've been here. And I arrived in Hollywood in April of 2001, and now it's June of 2021, 20 years. And so I've watched these, especially in the last sort of 6 or 7 years, I watched this crazy sort of rise of this entitlement pathology amongst the industry, where the audience doesn't matter. The audience is there to be lectured to. The audience, will take anything that we give them. And after almost a decade of that not working, it makes no sense to me, right? But the problem is exactly this: that you have essentially these things are being made by people that are part of a club, the club that's fought to keep me out. I mean, I've struggled, come in, pushed out, but this club doesn't want me in it. But these people are in the club, and they're really resentful that there's a tidal shift happening where their power is disappearing. The club broke itself, which is good news for me because I'm like, all right, well, screw you guys, I'll get around you now. But that's the feeling here.
Yeah, it's weird. Sorry, what'd you say?
I'm sorry to interrupt. He still talked today. A guy with a podcast. He's still talking about it.
Yeah, he's still doing this right now. He's literally 1 minute ago was just responding to somebody else. He's literally still going at it, this guy.
Hi,
and it's at this point, you'd think someone at Lucasfilm would see this going on and be like, hey, knock it off. But it seems like they're just fine with it.
They don't care.
There was even a former Lucasfilm writer or whatever who's endorsing it even. And it's just so they can come on and attack fans and say whatever they want. But Gina comes on and says one thing wrong and then fired.
Well, but we all know they're pathological. We've known that for the last several years. But to me, these are not the actions of people that are confident that they're in control. These are the actions of people that are spiraling out of control. And, basically at this point, and I've said this before, Lucasfilm, in my opinion, is the people there are finished. Their careers are severely damaged by what they've done. So they got nothing to lose. At this point, they're just burning everything down. They're trying to burn. Their goal is to basically, they're out. Their mentor that they thought they were going to ride the coattails of Miss Kennedy to glory didn't work out for them, and so now they're just going to burn the whole thing down and set fire to the legacy of George Lucas and Steven Spielberg as their screw you. If we can't have the glory of this, nobody can, right? And so that's this neighbor isn't. It doesn't. It was crazy 5-6 years ago. It is beyond crazy now, after years of seeing what the reaction is, and after years of Disney beginning to clamp down on these people, saying, shut up, don't create problems for our marketing, right? These are the actions of people that have lost and have given up. They're just going to set fire to the castle.
Yeah, I'm trying to see. There was I want to find the original tweet.
I don't think you're going to find it, love.
Well, he deleted it, but I want to see if somebody has a screen capture of the original tweet that Mangold put out there, because it was nuts.
Anyone watching the stream have a screenshot of the original tweet?
So I'm just taking a look to see if it was.
So there was a Trump thing, that's the big trigger for these guys.
Yeah, it was literally just out of the blue, just nope, gotta be just gotta say whatever I want,
dude. He's been out for 6-7 months. So why are they even talking about this guy?
I don't know. It's they can't let him go. They can't. They don't have anything else to
That's
talk
all
about.
they've got. None of them wanted this guy. They just took Mr. B because whatever, right? I mean, it was against Mr. T, right? But I was like, I look, you guys follow my social media. I have many critiques of Mr. Trump, but I'm not on the Trump derangement syndrome that the rest of the industry is on. I'll say, hey, you know what? I don't like that policy, and I'm very clear. I don't like that, and just because you did it, Trump, doesn't make it good. And I'm like, hey, that one works. And yes, I wish you weren't such a jerk in talking about that, but that actual policy works. I look at policy just like I'm looking at Biden right now. I'm look at policies like that doesn't work, that doesn't work, that doesn't work, that doesn't work. I'm just looking at it, right? And that's all I'm doing. But the industry doesn't like. And the industry is all about teams, and there's only one team. You're not allowed to have a second team, right? And so there's only one team, which is the anti-Trump team. And I'm just like, whatever.
Which is odd because isn't the entertainment industry supposed to be one of the most competitive businesses ever? So how can there only be one team if they're so competitive?
There's one ideological team. And like I said earlier on, if you don't fit in the ideology of it, it's a club, right? It's a mafia. And they will lock you out. And I'm not making that up. I mean, I've had the multiple incidences where people have called me and said, Cameron, I'm sorry, we were about to give you the job, but XYZ called and told us not to give it to you because he doesn't like your politics. They're that straightforward. They don't care. What are you going to do? Sue them and blow your wad out of the industry? I mean, I've had that multiple times where it's not like, oh, rumor. It's like somebody calls and says, I'm sorry, man. Boss was told not to give you the job. So there's a club, right? And the club doesn't want people that think differently in that club. I think old Hollywood, certainly through the original Hollywood into the 70s and the 80s was more about talent. Now it's purely about being part of the cocktail party circuit, of which Mr. Mangold is. So.
Yeah, and here we have I couldn't find the original tweet, but I found, so this is confusing to me. I don't know, Cameron, are you familiar with Jordan Mason?
The name's familiar. I don't really follow that account. Who's this person?
Well, apparently he's Ryan says he's a former Star Wars writer and artist, Jordan Mason, who is cheering Mangold on from behind a block wall. They love to do that.
Yeah, well, they're cowardly.
Like Pablo Hidalgo with his protected tweets.
Yeah, Pablo Hidalgo's protected account of his I have this one regular account, and then I have this one that you can't see anything on. I'm going to use it, but you can't see it. He has to embrace the chicken suit. Al from Toy Story 2 wears it, so he should.
I mean, he is a chicken.
All right, we have Prismatics in the chat saying hello.
Hello,
Hi, Prismatics. We also have the great one here saying that Lucasfilm, $1 billion franchise, has destroyed their potential profits. Next thing you know, we reboot the originals. Please
no.
God, no.
That's never going to happen.
No. And did we mention no?
But they're not that stupid. They are stupid, but they're not that stupid anymore.
I'm sorry, sir, but I would not be surprised if they are that stupid.
Well, they are that stupid, but right now the accountants are like, look, man, we're about to all go bankrupt and be bought up by some Chinese company. So let's figure something out now.
Everything is getting rebooted.
Yeah,
I'm sure they talked about it, but I am of the view that despite the controversy around it, I am of the view that the recent rumors that our friend Doomcock has put out there are likely true because they sound true to me based on my own interaction with people that know these characters. And I've been predicting all of this. I've been predicting for 5 years now that George Lucas would come back in and take control again. Because the same thing happened with Power Rangers, where Haim Saban sold it to Disney for a couple of $1 billion, bought it back for $100 million, made a $1.9 billion profit. And I just think the same thing is going to happen with Lucas. So yes, that is what people are afraid of. I think that they've been cut at the knees by their own stupidity, and that was the original plan. But that plan is gone. I don't think that's going to ever happen.
Yeah, you think by now if they're running out of money, and they know that this is not a good idea, they just keep doing it. You think that someone would step up, at least one person. I mean, I'm sure there are people who are doing it privately, but you think there's someone who would just step up and say why are we doing this? This is not helping us. But
but you see, that's the thing is, nobody's thinking about the company. Nobody's thinking about it in any of these places. They're only thinking about my job and my next job. That's all anybody's thinking about.
Yeah, but that's the problem. That's the problem. It used to be that people cared about not just their job, but the the place they are representing. And like, for example, one of the things that Mangold said was, "Oh, I'm not Lucasfilm. I'm just making a movie." And I'm thinking, you're representing a brand that's managed by Lucasfilm. So for all intents and purposes, you are now Lucasfilm.
Of course you are. When I was on Tron, whether I liked it or not, I was representing Disney, and I had to be careful, and I actually was one of the old school morons that still wanted to make a good show and care, and wanted the product to succeed and wanted it to make money for the company, and I got fired for it. And they ended up going with somebody who was then replacing me with somebody that knew how to handle the politics of Disney better than I did, and made them all happy by giving them what they wanted, and the show got canceled. But he went off and had his career. It didn't matter, right? And so that's where this is the dark, long end of the journey of corporate America, where we've gotten to, where corporate America is all about power without responsibility. Nobody wants responsibility, right? And so that's why he's shirking out. I'm not Lucasfilm, because I don't want to be responsible for all the bad juju around Lucasfilm. In fact, for him to even say that means he knows that there's some bad juju around Lucasfilm he doesn't want to be associated with. Why? I mean, this references to Lucasfilm. Just like my weirdo stalker 2 days ago started sending out posts about how Cameron attacks Lucasfilm for no reason. I was like, dude, why are you talking about Lucasfilm? Because they're all obsessed with this thing, because they're all from Lucasfilm. That's what it is.
Because they have nothing better to do with their sorry excuses for lives.
Look here, let me show you. I finally found it. Here, look. He literally says, "I'm not Lucasfilm, just a guy, but maybe you're right. See you later." But you are. It doesn't matter if you're like directly employed by them or not. It's if you are producing a brand that belongs to them, you are them. Doesn't matter whether you want to be or not.
Or at least you represent them.
Disassociate. That's the thing, is why is he even trying to disassociate? It's because he knows that brand is tainted. And, and these are the actions of a dude who's figured out that he's on a sinking ship and he's gotten screwed, and someone put an anchor around his neck. And now he's trying to break free and make his movie without all this dross that he was given.
Yeah, it's just weird because, I mean, I get it. I get why he's doing it. But at the same time, like, whatever happened to just not commenting?
Yeah, just don't. This drama is nothing good is going to come out of this drama. His movie will not be in a better place after this drama.
The problem is that they have to begin the drama to begin with because they are such cloud chasers and have no self-validation.
It's like if he had just not commented and not said anything, no one would care. Yeah. People would still be having their opinion. See, because here's the thing. Regardless of whether people intervene, people are going to have their opinions. That's just how it works. That's how fandom works. So they're going to have their opinions on your movie before it's out, after it's out, when it's out. Doesn't matter. In 5 years, in 2 years, doesn't matter. They're going to have their opinions. Those aren't going to magically go away. If anything, you've just made them worse.
Oh, yes.
So why not just take a step back and not say anything? I don't. Aside from like stirring up drama on purpose, which I'm actually thinking might be their marketing plan here. It's just making this on purpose to just get a big fuss.
It's not a good marketing plan.
It's not.
That's not smart. I mean, again, these are the dumb marketing plans from 5 years ago when they didn't realize it doesn't work. Now they realize it doesn't work. So this is pettiness.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but it's like, what do they gain from this?
Nothing.
Aside, like the only thing I can think of is some weird new marketing strategy.
What they gain from this is this. Let me tell you what they gain from this. It's what I said earlier. He's gonna gain a nice feeling from Kathleen Kennedy that you put yourself out on the line for me. And whether Miss Kennedy has a future or not, her husband, Frank Marshall, definitely does. So what he's doing is he's putting himself in. I'm going to protect you, Kathy, Frank, also. That's what this is. This is coming in and protecting mommy and daddy. And then hopefully getting a new project out of them.
Well, I hope it works out well for him, but I don't think it's going to.
I'm not getting my hopes up.
This is all silliness. I didn't know this was happening until this early this morning. I got a message from Matthew Cadish, something was going on. I didn't know all the details, and Matthew and I have a long journey together because I came to his defense a year and a half ago when he rightfully said that Birds of Prey wasn't going to work, and he got attacked, and then I went out and I got in his defense and I got attacked, and then we both ended up being right. And so it looks like he's being prophetic about this movie as well. Because Matthew he's very good with, and he worked in the industry for a while. He's very good with analyzing these things and the market. And so he's just presenting how the fandom is thinking. And he did the same with Birds of Prey, and he was 100% right. And he was called a sexist and a man baby and all this stuff and whatever, lots of comments about his private parts. And then he turned out to be 100% right. I think he may be right about Indiana Jones. The reaction here suggests to me he's going to be right, because if this was a quality movie, you wouldn't bother with this crap.
Exactly. That's what I was saying. I was saying there's no reason to attack the fans about it unless you're upset about it. And if you're upset about it, what that tells me is you're not sure about your movie, and you're not
because Mangold is a good filmmaker. He knows a good movie and a bad movie. So something must be going on telling him, I'm screwed. The script doesn't work. He's being forced to make creative choices he doesn't want to do by Lucasfilm, which is why I keep saying Lucasfilm again and again, because it's haunting him. It's in his head.
He could just come out and say that, but then he'd probably get fired.
Well, yeah.
So just releasing
Prismatic brings up a good point, and he says the fourth Indiana Jones film was a mess. I can't imagine what the fifth will be. And I've discussed this honestly.
It'll be a trash fire within a trash fire.
Nobody wants to see a 80-year-old like Harrison Ford. I don't.
Swinging with a walker by his whip?
I don't. It's going to be Indiana Gramps and the Curse of Old Age. I don't want to see that.
You know what I would love to see? I would love to see, and I don't know if you guys might be too young for this, but when I was a kid in the 80s, there was an incredible brief series.
Young Indiana Jones?
Young Indiana Jones.
I've seen an episode of that.
I'm sorry?
Yeah, that was good.
I would love to see Young Indiana Jones made with the spirit of the original of that original show and the original movies. There's a market for that. That's the only thing you can do. Like you said, God bless Harrison Ford. He's had a massive legacy. There's no reason for him to do this right now. There's no reason for him to do this. And so, he should do what Jerry Seinfeld did, which is know when to walk away. Seinfeld walked away at the height of his success, not at the moment that Seinfeld was about to start losing ratings, and at the highest point in his ratings, because he knew there's no better way to go out than that. And that's what Mr. Ford should have done with this, and let us have young Indiana Jones, but whatever.
Yeah, and they could have even, they could have even had, if they wanted to, they could have even had like Harrison Ford make a cameo as like a character. No one would have cared about that. That would have been cool.
A cameo would have been better.
I'm sorry.
Would have been better.
Well, if you remember the original Young Indiana Jones show, what was amazing about that is that it was always told as a frame story from the point of view of old Indiana Jones. They had some actors, like elderly 90-year-old man with a patch on his eye, but he still had Indy's hat. And he was walking to the museum and he was telling stories to a little kid. And then you realize
when I was your age. The whole when I was your age kind of thing.
And you could do that and that would actually honor the show from the 80s. You could do that with Harrison Ford and have him tell stories and then go back and have a young actor playing him and going through these incredible adventures in the 30s.
Yeah, but they're not going to do that because that's a good idea.
They just come up with bad ideas. That's all they do.
It's like they're thinking their bad ideas are good ideas. How delusional are they?
Well, I don't think it's delusional. I think they're trying to court a market that they believe exists, or a fan base that they believe exists. And it's almost like I made this analogy before. I think, Cameron, I think you appreciated it back then. They're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole. They're like, if we keep pounding this in, eventually something will happen.
Or it will break.
But again, it's because they're trapped in a system that's following a false ideology, and they all know it's a false ideology. I did a recent interview for a TV job, and the boss was a lovely young lady who must have been 25 years old, who was just an assistant and who just got sold her script, and now they're going to make her the boss. All right, okay, you're the boss of the show. But I listened to her, and she just repeated all the same mantras about diversity and this and that and, representation. And I was like, oh, my God. Is this
sounds like 1984.
Yeah, it's just like and it was just same old story and this same old mantras, because she's saying the mantras because she's also young and insecure and wants to fit into the ideological club. And I know that this stuff doesn't work. Most of the industry practically knows it doesn't work, but they just, again, nobody's looking at success. They just don't want to get fired. They just want their next gig. They don't want to go through the drama that I go through, which is I speak the truth, I get fired. It's happened like 3 or 4 times. And sometimes I land on my feet and I have my next gig, right? It's not a fun journey. Look this weekend. Let's talk about this weekend. The box office this weekend. They had that Lin-Manuel Miranda musical that came out that set the Latino community, right?
In the Heights, I think it was called.
Hollywood. Pardon me?
I think it was called In the Heights.
In the Heights, thank you. And I saw a trailer for that, and I said, and I actually like musicals. I said, I'm not going to go see this. It just doesn't look that interesting. I don't know who any of these people are. I don't care for this story, whatever. And so I grew up in New York, so it's set in the Dominican areas of New York. I've grown up in those areas. I know that. I was like, I don't want to see this. And so nobody else wanted to see this. And then today, the deadline, the trade article about the box office, which is that shocking A Quiet Place Part 2, which I saw and loved, is the number one movie. And they're like, shockingly, no one in town expected, this to beat, In the Heights. And it's like,
yes, we did.
Somebody expected In the Heights to be a success, and then it was going to be the number one movie. The number one movie.
People are so stupid.
And there's, if you go in the deadline article, there's all these comments saying, all you people in the Hollywood bubble, you're the only ones that thought this movie was going to be a success, right? Because again, it ticked off all your ideological boxes. It's Miranda, who's politically in the right place. I think he's a talented guy, but he's politically in the right place. It's a Latino community. It's it's the struggles of the inner city and representation. Nobody cares about that. We've all been through a year and a half of having our butts kicked by a horrific global event. We just want escapism, and the amazing thing is the movie that I love, which is Quiet Place Part 2, is an apocalyptic movie after we've been through an apocalyptic year. But it's so heartfelt that I wish that I'd had those people helping me get through this last year, these survivors, right? And so the fact that Hollywood is putting out trade articles, I was like, nobody expected this movie to be a hit, much less the number one movie that was going to beat A Quiet Place. Nobody expected that. But you all have to say that because you can't. They're like, Hollywood is trying to figure out why this diversity-themed movie did not connect with the audiences. It's like, well, because it's just a diversity-themed movie. If you just had diversity without thinking about it, it was about something else, like Shazam, which was a movie about something else that had a very naturally diverse cast of kids. And it wasn't about, we got the brown guy, we got the Asian guy. It wasn't about that. It was about the Shazam and his adventures with his friends, right?
That's why I enjoyed it. But with In the Heights, one of the reasons I knew it was probably going to fail was because one of the people behind it was the guy who made the music for Hamilton, the Broadway. And in that Broadway, they race-swapped Alexander Hamilton, who was a white slave owner in history.
Although the argument is that Hamilton had Caribbean ancestry and whatever, but
but they literally made his actor a black guy when in history he was a white who owned black slaves. Why would you do that?
Well, but that's the ideological club, Raven. That's the club, because that's every TV show I've worked on was like, oh my God, have you seen Hamilton? Oh my God, I got special tickets for it. It's just the club. Hamilton is like the sacred cow, and everyone has to support it, and blah 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 blah. And so it's like, they had to give this guy, and I do think Miranda's a talented guy. I do think that, right? And so this movie was going to be an art film, and it should have been marketed as an art film for a niche audience and made for that budget, and it would have been a success for that art film audience, which is the only ones that went and saw it. The funny thing is, The Last Jedi was an art film, right? And so whatever. So they're making.
Don't you teach that lecture? Wait, but don't you teach that lecture saying how not to make a movie with The Last Jedi as the prime example?
I've given that lecture several times. I've given that lecture at Columbia University. I've given that lecture.
I think that was how we discovered you.
Yeah, I think so.
That was how we discovered you, actually.
Well, I've talked a lot. I don't think I'm invited anymore to university. I used to be a lot, and then people started figuring out my politics didn't serve theirs at the university circuit, right? So for about 10 years, I was getting a lot of attention at universities. People were like, oh, this Muslim guy in Hollywood. So I would be invited to speak, and I spoke at Harvard, at Columbia, at little Christian colleges in the Midwest, everywhere, right? And in the last several years, I would, as part of my talk about where Hollywood is going and use The Last Jedi as an example of where the storytelling and economics aren't working. I did that talk at business school at Dartmouth. I did that talk at the University of Oregon, just before the pandemic. And so, I talk about it, but, the last time I gave the talk, everyone, I sat down for lunch with all the young kids, and they were excited about Hollywood. I gave the talk about, these mistakes that they're making with movies like The Last Jedi. And then all the kids were like, but it has representation. So I was like, okay, so it looks like my talk.
I am so glad. I am so glad I graduated college before I discovered the indoctrination.
Yeah, I mean,
it's nuts.
It's funny. I went to Dartmouth undergrad, which at least in those days was a conservative school, at least the student body. The professors were all leftists, as all professors are, right? But the students were actually quite right wing, and it was funny because I'm this brown Muslim guy from like this poor neighborhood, like from In the Heights, right? And I show up around all these rich white dudes who go skiing in the Alps regularly, right? And it was actually a great experience because I challenged them, they challenged me. We learned, we grew, we developed mutual respect, all of that. There wasn't this ideological, bubble that university has become and Hollywood has become.
Yeah, yeah. It's weird that they. I mean, I get why they push this stuff but it's been shown multiple times not work, and you'd think that like eventually someone would stand up and say like, hello, or you people like not seeing it. And there have been people who do that, but they're quickly like, like, oh, you be quiet, get out of here.
I used to want to work in Hollywood.
Okay.
I used to want to work in Hollywood.
What's your specialty, Raven? What do you want to be a screenwriter? What do you want to do?
I have taken a course in screenwriting just in case if I ever publish one of my stories that someone wants to make it a live action adaptation, I would have a say in what goes in the script because I would not let anyone else write the script. I did get pretty good reviews on the script I did write for that class.
I remember saying that exact
the
very first script I did. Yeah. And my agent said, "Well, Cameron, that's one way for you not to have a career in this town." And because for my script, you lose control of it. So yeah.
For my script writing class, it was my favorite class in my entire college career because it was the only class that I took for writing where I actually could write, where I actually was not criticized for writing what I wanted. In my fiction writing class, I got told, oh, it's just another Poe story when it was really a sequel to Rumpelstiltskin. I was told in my poetry class that I wasn't learning anything and that I shouldn't use themes. And oh, Edgar Allan Poe never did anything right. That made me hate that teacher. So nonfiction I did okay in, but with screenwriting, I was the only one who chose to write a rated R horror movie. And my teacher and my class loved it. Even though they only got to see the first 10 pages of my script. But basically, I do science fiction, fantasy, everything has an element of horror. I have some nonfiction, I have some poetry, which I have not touched in years. And basically, I wanted to do screenplays in Hollywood until I discovered all this wokeness. And what the industry has become, I don't want to work there anymore. I'd rather self-publish now. So it's quite sad because that was something I really wanted to do.
It's okay. Continue on your writing path. I do believe over the next decade that the industry will reboot into Industry 5.0, whatever we are at this point, right? I think we're actually about to come into an era that's going to be like the early 70s or the mid 70s, where you have a whole new bunch of new filmmakers that come in and tear up the town like Coppola, Spielberg, and Lucas did in the 70s, right? I think that's coming because the industry is broken, and the industry is aware that it's broken. And they've gotten everything they wanted. They got Mr. Trump out, they got their guy in, and now they're collapsing on themselves. And the thing is, they can't use the old excuses. The old excuses that they were being used in the last several months was that, because of the health events, no one's going to go see movies. Well, right now the theaters are full with people seeing A Quiet Place and The Conjuring, which I really enjoyed, this new Conjuring movie, right? And so the theaters are actually doing really well right now. So in the analysis that the trades are now doing about In the Heights, they're trying to make the excuse, well, pandemic, people aren't going to go watch it, or it's like, no, they're watching Quiet Place. They're giving it like, $60 million. They just don't want to watch this movie, right? In a theater or otherwise. And so whether they like it or not, the industry is facing the economics of that. And I do believe over the next decade, a new industry will be born, which will be more welcoming to people like you.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, one of the things that I'm afraid of if my stories get offered live action is the race swapping of characters. Because I have this one character in one of my stories, the first book of which is co-authored and published currently online. Mm-hmm. One of the characters that I'm introducing in book 2 is a redhead. And I am so so not looking forward to having to tell them, no, you're keeping her a redhead. I am not letting you hire a black person to play a redhead.
He'll be a black person with dyed red hair, so it's good.
Speaking as a redhead myself, it used to be like a joke. It was a joke at first, like, oh, ha, 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 we're going to race swap some redheads, ha, ha. And now it's like, it's not a joke anymore.
But it's like, I also don't want people to change, like how every character these days has their sexuality changed. I specifically have my characters written as their orientations, and I even establish it in a certain way. Like I have characters who are already married, let's say. I just don't want people to change that. I can't, which is why I was always so insistent on being the one to write the script, if that ever happened. Now I don't want it to.
But yeah, first you got to get some other stuff published.
Oh yeah, good point. I'm very slow in that regard.
It's a process. The process of filming. First of all, let me also say salam to T-shirted historian, who's a friend of mine on Twitter. Thank you for being here. But this is the industry. The challenge, and because I'm an author as well, I'm a novelist as well, and so we have power when we're writing our own stories. Whether we're publishing through a publishing house or self-publishing, we have power. Even traditional publishers largely defer to an author, right? When I got my books published, Simon & Schuster turned to me for everything from the edits. I had to approve all the edits to the cover design. I had to choose it, and I gave specific cover designs, and then they showed me, would you like this one or this one? That's author world. Hollywood is a different world because regrettably, especially in movies, especially in feature filmmaking, writers don't have power. The script is, when the moment you sell a script, it is taken away from you. It is rewritten, usually to its detriment, and then goes through multiple. And then they realize the script isn't as good as the first one, and then they got another writer to rewrite that one. And they keep doing it until they end up with a mediocre version of the original story that you told. And then that's what they film. That is the process. The only way out of that process, and even in this new Hollywood I see the coming next 10 years, is still the only way out is going to have to be working with independent filmmakers who are not working in the studio system, because that will always be the studio system.
Yeah, I have seen something about that screenwriters don't actually get paid.
Well, you get paid.
Or at least they get paid, or at least they get paid nothing compared to what everyone else gets paid.
Well, definitely, look, a successful screenwriter can make like $1 million, $2 million bucks on a big budget movie, right? That's a lot of money. But then the director's making $5 million bucks, and the cast is making $30 million bucks, right? So you're not the highest person on the totem pole in features, which is unfortunate because without stories you got nothing. But the political structure of Hollywood is that the directors and producers control features. For the last 10, 20 years, television was the medium for writers, where writers dominated and writers would become incredibly wealthy and powerful, and they had control. In the last 2 years, that has been hobbled as well, because the Writers Guild, and I've been very public about this, the Writers Guild had an argument with the agents over a complicated matter called packaging, and they didn't like how they instead of trying to resolve it, they made us fire all of our agents. So all of us, 10,000 writers, had to fire their agents as a negotiation tactic. And I had these wonderful agents at UTA. I had to fire them.
Wow.
Or be expelled from the guild, right? And so then you can't work in Hollywood. And so I had to let them go. And it took 18 months with writers without agents. A lot of people left the industry. A lot of people went broke, lost their homes, because the agents are your lifeblood to connect you with opportunities, right? And then when they finally resolved it, I ended up with a new agency. I'm at Gersh, which is a very nice agency. I'm very happy there. But, it was a choice that I should have been allowed to make on my own, rather than a gun put to my head saying, fire those agents and maybe you'll get another one. So, but the end result of that process has been that writers in the last 18 months, without their agents, lost a lot of power in television, which was our area. So now you're seeing more and more shows are being greenlit and announced where the director is announced as the showrunner. And most recently, a producer who's never written a script before announced they were doing a show, and that this non-writing producer was going to be the showrunner. So the showrunner, which was the powerful job that writers held for the last several decades, is now being parceled out to others because of the stupid political moves that we did. And so writers, at this point, most writers are screwed even in television, and so you just have to take what you can get.
Well, I think that's why I'm holding out hope for this new announcement of the Munsters reboot that they announced, directed by Rob Zombie, who I know is a master of horror movies and monster movies. And I do know from what I have seen that his work is respectful to the lore of what he works with.
Yeah, he loves his genre.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm actually holding out hope that he's going to do well with this Monsters reboot, even if it focuses more on horror than comedy. I would say the same about Tim Burton's retake on the Addams Family, but that's being controlled by Netflix.
I don't even go into that stuff. The last mainstream movie me and my wife watched was the most recent Addams Family,
the animated one. Ugh.
It literally is everything wrong with the industry. It's literally they put it this way: the swamp by their house gets drained,
quite
literally, and it shows that there's a city below them, and the city's name is Assimilation, and they're weird, so they need to assimilate with the rest of them. And literally, the movie is about an angry woman who gets like a whole mob together, and
through
they have
social media,
like torches and pitchforks on their phones, and they walk around and they try attacking them. That's the movie.
Yeah, and they made Wednesday wear pink, and they had the house painted pink. I cried. I wanted to give that movie a chance because I love the Addams Family.
Well, I will say this: I've seen photos of the original set. It was incredible. We've seen it in black and white. The original set was incredibly vibrant. They had a lot of pink in it. It was very strange, but we've never seen that. The image we have of it is this dark set, right? Because it was black.
Yeah, I know. But one of the things, which is one of the things I love about it, is because they have all of this color in the actual show on the set, but because it was in the 60s, you saw it all as black and white. And even in the 90s movies, they had which was colorized. It was still amazing. I still really loved that. But with this new one, it just destroyed it. For me, that was it. That was my end of mainstream TV.
We haven't watched anything mainstream since then, really.
It's all been YouTube and anime.
Because it was just like, what? No, I think
maybe the last mainstream movie we watched was an 80s one, Elvira, and that was for my birthday.
That was a fun movie. Elvira.
That was a fun movie, but basically...
I work in television. People are always asking me, so what shows you watching? I'm primarily on Discovery Plus watching paranormal ghost hunter shows. That's what I watch.
Those shows are awesome.
Yes, they are.
That's what I watch. And so, the dramas don't interest me anymore. The current
now we're just trying not to run out of anime.
I had where my wife hit her kind of rock bottom on the Addams Family. I hit it a much earlier. Mm-hmm. For me, The Last Jedi was a pretty significant blow for me when Luke threw the lightsaber over his shoulder. That was something that was just like a slap in the face. But for me, what killed mainstream for me, Doctor Who. What they did to Doctor Who. Mm-hmm. That was awful.
Yeah.
Awful.
Doctor Who was his favorite.
Favorite show.
I grew up with Doctor Who. I have to say, Peter Davison was the last Doctor for me, and as a kid watching it in the 80s, right? I even went to a convention and met Peter Davison. I was so excited. I never watched. I think I watched the pilot relaunch of the new Doctor Who's. My understanding is a lot of them were very good until you got to this 13th Doctor, whatever this crap is, right? Which violates the lore, because the whole lore had always been that the Gallifreyans have 12 regenerations and then they die, right? So suddenly he comes back as a woman. What? And now
they also did the thing with on Transgender where they gave him a new regeneration cycle.
I've heard about that, and it's from what I've heard about it. I mean, I'm like, I'm just gonna go back to the original '60s stuff. I would go.
Well, I don't know if you heard what they did. It was bad enough that they did what they did, but they also went back and retconned the Doctor. The Doctor's no longer a Time Lord. They got rid of that.
Well, he's not Gallifreyan, right? Or she's not Gallifreyan.
Not anymore.
Nope, not a Time Lord anymore.
Right? Yeah.
The Time War never happened for some reason.
That part I did know about. And so what happened to the Time War?
They got rid of it. They decided they didn't like it.
The whole thing that they said was the reason the show wasn't on for 10 years, where they said it was the Time War. Yeah. That Time War now no longer happened.
And they also went back and ruined some of the best episodes from really good in the new Doctor Who, at least. But they also went back and they ruined all of it. And for me, that the final thing when I literally just was like, I'm done with Doctor Who, I'm never going to talk about it kind of again, was when Russell T Davies came out and said something about how the Doctor not only can be turned into a woman, but can be different species.
Animals.
So we can have horse doctor or dolphin doctor. What? Just, that was enough. I was just too much.
Yeah, that was ridiculous. Because it completely defeats the purpose of the regeneration cycle. And of Doctor Who in general. Because the whole point of Doctor Who is that you don't know who he really is. And then they decided to give him a backstory, which sucked.
And I actually wrote to them. I wrote to them when I heard about it. I wrote them.
And they never responded.
Well, they did.
They
did. They responded. They gave me like a copy and paste thing about how we believe that all heroes need a backstory. And this is how theirs. We urge you to, this is not get rid of William Hartnell's legacy or anything like that. We urge you to continue to give it a shot and see what we have next. No.
James.
Well, at least they acknowledge who William Hartnell was. I don't think these people even know who he was.
Well, they retconned it. He's no longer the first Doctor anymore.
Yeah, I know. He's apparently, it was a black woman. And she was.
I would have been better off
Viking says it. What happened? The Doctor was a black girl who got experimented on her, discovered time travel and regeneration. They literally killed her over and over and over again, multiple times, to steal regeneration from her.
So basically, they were promoting child abuse.
Yeah, and strong, independent women.
That feeds into. I mean, we don't have to go there, but there's in some of the more fringier elements of the conversation about politics in the world. There's a lot of people talking about stuff like in Hollywood they steal little children and drain them of blood to.
Oh my God!
Feeds into that narrative.
I thought that was Mickey Mouse and Catholics. I mean, it's usually no offense to Catholics, but that is an old wives' tale among your culture.
But
whatever.
So I didn't even think of that.
That kind of stuff is gonna whatever. Look, I mean, they didn't ask me to write.
Hollywood kills children to gain power?
No. What Cameron's saying is it sounds very similar to the story of Hollywood has kids and drains their blood.
Yeah,
well,
like
in this case,
a Chrome story that's out there, or whatever. So it sounds like that. So it's like, okay, why
it's similar. It's killing this person to steal their regeneration.
Oh wow!
So if we want to, we can say the strong, independent Whammon character.
And they don't even know how to do that right. Seriously, they need.
So the Gallifreyan didn't develop time travel on their own, and regeneration is not a natural.
Nope, it all came from this little black baby girl.
It always came from the black baby girl, and wait for it, their brilliant idea to end off the season was cyber Time Lords.
So like Cybermen Time Lords?
Yeah. Yep. I can see your face.
That doesn't make sense because if people are like assimilated and they're dead, but Time Lords can't die because regeneration is not limited to 12. So I'm confused. Like, if they died, wouldn't they not be able to be like assimilated because they're not dead?
They're not even human. I thought only humans can be transferred into into Cybermen.
Well, the thing is, the Cybermen were always interesting. And because in the old show, they even had. I remember. I think it was Tom Baker had this great moment where he confronted one of the Cybermen, and he said, "You don't even remember what you had. You were once human, right? You have these powers, but you don't have emotions anymore. You can't love. You can't feel anything, right?
Yeah.
And the Cybermen didn't know how to respond to that. I mean, those were always interesting. And a lot of people found those characters scarier than the Daleks. Because the Daleks are just, these creatures hiding inside the salt and pepper shaker thing you can't identify with. Cybermen are people that have been turned into the Borg, essentially, right? And they've lost their ability to feel. And that's something very tragic and very scary. So why would Cybermen be time Lords? I mean, I don't know. I don't understand any of this. I don't understand it. And
yeah, we're with you there.
Doctors religiously. To be honest, I didn't really follow the Sixth Doctor that much. Peter Davison was a hype for me, but I knew that lore. It is a complicated lore, and I never was confused.
Yeah, let's see if I can. I'm trying to find actually to show you. You'll here. Those are Cyber Time Lords.
Oh. They got the Gallifreyan head.
They look so stupid. I'm sorry.
Your reaction is priceless, sir.
I mean, because I recognize what they're trying to do. They're like, oh, they got the little. Because I remember all those big puffy Gallifreyan thing that they would always wear every time. The Doctor would show up on Gallifrey and he would lecture the council. They'd all be sitting there with these things on, and now they got him as metal. Whatever.
Yep.
whatever.
But yeah, it's terrible. And then
everything we love has been destroyed. Nothing is sacred anymore.
Not even anime. They're coming for that too.
Unfortunately, Japan's having none of it.
Resistance to this. I mean, the Japanese seem to have never cared that anime is like out there and sexual and crazy and different. They've never.
I know. God bless Japan.
Yeah, the Japanese are sort of in their own world, right? They've always been in their own world when it comes to entertainment.
And they can't. Yeah, and they know how to tell good stories.
Yeah. And
they have, their own versions of diverse characters, but they still focus on good stories. I love that about Japan. Can we move to Japan?
It's
early in my career,
he's just done.
I know.
Early in my career, I worked with Japanese director Hideo Nakata, who created the original Ringu that became The Ring, right? And when I watched, The Ring scared the crap out of me. Then I watched the Ringu, and that scared me even more. It's amazing. He had no budget. And when she climbs out of the television set in his version in Ringu, the original version, it is more visceral and terrifying than what they did in Hollywood. This guy I met the guy. He was a sweet guy. He was he's like this little unassuming Japanese dude, didn't know how to drive. I had to drive him all over LA. And it was just like, we would talk, and he was just this gentle, sweet guy who could not understand how this thing he created had become like this global thing.
Yeah, probably because it never got westernized in his version.
Yeah.
Thank God for Japan.
Yeah, and Viking Out of Time says Masters of the Universe and Lord of the Rings coming up to the Destruction Department. Yep. Yeah. Looks like that's going to be a thing.
Sadly. We could tell that with Masters of the Universe for their Revelations show, because it does not say He-Man before Masters of the Universe.
But yeah, that's a whole different bag of words.
Is anyone surprised by this?
No.
Where we are politically, did anyone ever think they were going to make, Adam and He-Man the star of the show?
No.
I'm surprised He-Man is he still a blonde white dude in this thing? Is he still? I don't know.
Yeah, he is. But from what we're being told, they're going to kill him off or something, and then they're going to make Tila the heroine and whatever.
Yeah. I just take me time machine, take me back to 1984. I don't belong in this time. I don't belong here.
Can we come with?
I'd rather just move. I'd rather just get on the next rocket to Mars.
Yeah, if Elon Musk starts offering trips, we'll have to look into it.
Please take us with you, and also let's create a separate rocket so we can send all the crazy people who want to come with us up into the atmosphere, and have blow up the rocket before they can reach,
Or better,
just
make our own planet, and we call it Logic. They never use logic, so they'll never come there. That's the best way to have them not come here.
Can we just leave them all behind? They've destroyed this world as is. Let them destroy it further.
Like I said, they're going to play the rest of this crap out because, again, none of this is being made for the market. This is all being made for people that just want to get their next job in the club. But the thing is, they don't see the club as collapsing. I see it because I've been, excluded from the club. I've gotten into the club and they kick me out, come back and they kick me out. And so I see the cracks in the club. And that's why I'm so vocal about Lucasfilm and stuff like that, because that's the club, right? That has often locked me out of stuff. And so watching them collapse is very amusing to me. But the people that are still in there don't realize it's collapsing. And when they do, they start getting antsy, like Mr. Mangold is getting antsy, right? And so these projects, regrettably, are going to play out. They're not going to work. If Lord of the Rings, from what I've heard, is going to go down this direction, it's probably not going to work.
No. They're giving it a Game of Thrones angle.
Yeah, exactly, which is whatever. It's not Game of Thrones. Peter Jackson caught the feeling of the Tolkien books. He caught them. They're mystical. They're otherworldly. They're like a child fairy tale brought to a large scale with epic scale.
And they focus on telling a good story.
Correct. And, so if they try to sexualize it, even look, Aragorn and Arwen was never sexualized in the books. So you don't even know their date, until wait, he's marrying Arwen? What's happening, right? They have to get a little backstory in the appendix of their love story, right? It is not, in some ways it's sort of a British, it's sort of Victorian British restrained, thing. And so if I've heard there's this weird sexualization energy to it and all this stuff and various social justice issues. They're going to try that stuff. It's not Tolkien. It's not what Tolkien was about. Tolkien was a guy who was actually obsessed with religion. You read the Silmarillion, it's a very religious book. He comes from an era where there's a sort of, C.S. Lewis kind of philosophical Christian world. And so none of this is what he's about or the material. So you're not going to be able to stretch it that far. You're just going to break it.
They're going to try anyway, which is why it's going to suck.
The OneRing.net, was it last week?
Yeah.
Attacked Nerdrotic about it. I don't know if you saw about that they were like saying how Tolkien has always been woke, and it was just like, what are you talking about?
Saying how Ian McKellen was always attacked for his sexuality, and we didn't even know he was gay. Sorry, Ian McKellen.
Found out, nobody cared.
Yeah, exactly. He was just a great actor.
I didn't even know.
He is a great actor because he's still alive.
Yeah, it's whatever. It's yeah. I mean, look, this is again these people. What we're seeing is that the woke crowd lives in a bubble that's, the world didn't exist before 2016. So there's no past beyond that. So they recreate the past, because the problem with the woke crowd is very simple. The woke crowd's whole thing is they've got to save the world. But, the world in many ways culturally was doing pretty well. We overcame a lot of social issues in the last couple of decades that seemed insurmountable, right? Whether you like these policies or not, we got a black president, right? Whether, you couldn't even imagine 20 years ago when I arrived in Hollywood that gay marriage would be legalized pretty much nationwide. You couldn't have imagined that, right? You couldn't have imagined, that gay characters would just be normal on television. You couldn't have imagined, like, Will and Grace had to be the special show. Now all that. So we've crossed a lot of thresholds of a social acceptance and all this stuff. So these guys, like, they're still trying to save the world. Like, my generation saved the world. So they got nothing to do. So what they're doing is they're ruining the world in order to save it again.
Yeah.
And since Viking brought it up, it's a good topic. The Tolkien Society released their list of talks for their summer seminar, and it all sounds like these people hate Tolkien. So here's actually the list.
You mean like how the guy who's now in charge of Star Trek hates Star Trek?
But isn't Christopher Tolkien still involved in this or not?
I thought he was dead.
Is he passed away? I didn't realize he passed away.
I'm pretty sure that they're able to do this now because he died. I may be mistaken, though.
He protected his father's legacy, so yeah.
Yeah. I mean, just like with Mary Poppins, when Disney made Mary Poppins Returns, the author of the book, she was they even made a movie about how involved she was in the movie's production. And she actually hated the end result that came out. So Disney had to wait until she died to buy the rights back in order to make the sequel.
Well, to be fair, I really liked Mary Poppins Returns. I thought it was a worthy sequel. That's my view. I enjoyed it very much, and I thought it was really well done. So I don't know what her critiques were. I felt it was in line with the first movie and the books, but whatever.
So Viking says that he did die. So
yeah, I thought so.
So
that's why they're able to do this now, is because he can no longer protect the legacy.
You can already tell there's a problem. It's a summer seminar.
But are not limited to representation in Tolkien's works: race, gender, sexuality, disability, class, religion. What do we know about religion in Tolkien's works? I mean, what do we know about it?
Plenty.
Well, I mean, it's the religion of Iluvatar, and it's the religion of the Silmarillion, right? But it's not our religions.
Diversity,
why does it matter?
Identity.
Representation,
colonialism. This dude was a British colonialist. What are you talking about? This is J.R. Tolkien is the last representation of the British Empire. What are you post-colonialism? What is this crap?
Wow.
This guy's one of the dudes who would have viewed India as the.
Whoa! What is it?
Oh my God!
Oh no! A brief introduction to transgender realities in the Lord of the Rings. Portraying physical disability in fantasy.
Well, here's something interesting. I remember this. Okay, I remember this in the Silmarillion, the grand epic that Tolkien wrote, which is the mythology of the whole world, right? I remember this. The beings, the sort of divine beings like the Maiar and whatever, the Ainur, who are sort of the beings that Iluvatar, the one god, has created, of which Sauron was one of them, and whatever. So these beings, it said in the books, they could take human form, and they could take any form they wanted to, but they gravitate. It actually says they could take any sex they wanted to, but they naturally gravitated towards their own energy. So a female, Maya would take the form of a human woman, right? Even though they could take the male form. He says that, but they naturally just felt more comfortable in that energy. So he already addressed this in the Silmarillion.
That actually makes a lot of sense, though, the way that's written.
But like the first one, transgender realities in Lord of the Rings. What?
There's also Tolkien's dwarf women and femininity lack.
Wait, where?
Feminine lack, right here.
And feminine lack. So
The invisible
because they have
other.
beards, because the women have beards, they're
Oh,
okay. All right.
Oh,
Projecting.
the Losoth. Indigeneity, however that's pronounced, identity, and anti-racism.
oh, there's more.
The onion.
Half
Are you
elven?
the Babylon?
Oh,
What is this?
Pardoning Saruman, the queer in Tolkien's Lord of the Rings.
Oh my god. Queer atheists, agnostics, and animists.
Oh my. What? Something mighty queer. Do you stay? What?
Destabilizing cis hetero and
Anti-normativity.
Is that even a word?
Apparently, it is now in the academic world.
Translation as a means of representation and diversity in Tolkien's scholarship and fandom. What is wrong with these people?
Everything.
Oh, yeah.
Does the Tolkien estate, is the Tolkien estate involved in this thing?
No. I think they actually, there was someone there, I forget his name, who was like a Tolkien scholar, I forget his name.
Yeah.
Who was overseeing it, and he left.
Probably because of this.
Yeah, because he saw this taking over, whatever.
Oh, God.
I mean, you could do a lot of scholarship on Tolkien in many ways. You can do linguistic analysis of the languages he created. He created entire languages that work. You could do analysis of the mythology, how much it takes from Swedish, northern European mythology. Like a lot of this comes out of. You can do all this mythological analysis. This kind of analysis makes no sense to me.
Not at all.
Yeah, and apparently his name was Shippy. I forget his first name.
Me too.
But he was like a Tolkien scholar, and he was there to make sure everything went by the lore, everything would make sure it's whatever. And then he just walked out and didn't give a reason. But that's when people started to have doubts. Something's not right. But
that's when you could start smelling the woke.
And then they're like, oh yes, we have to make sure all of our nude. We have a nude coordinator to make sure all the nude actors and actresses are feeling comfortable. But nudity is not in Lord of the Rings. Tom Shippey was his name, as Viking says. But.
Thank you, Viking. Skull.
Whatever. Yeah. Okay. Well, I wish I didn't know any of this. This is the cloud on my day. You've added a cloud under my day. I wish I didn't know.
Sorry. My apologies.
No, but it is what it is.
You have our condolences.
It is what I mean. Look, it's I'm just looking forward to the collapse of the club, my friends, because this is all being supported by the club, and the club is on its last legs, as we're seeing by Mr. Mangold's reaction today. It's on its last legs, and the reaction that we saw the trades freaking out that In the Heights didn't do well. It's going to start the soul searching of maybe the audience doesn't want this, right? Because they're like. They made this allegedly for people of color, which is the new phrase, right? That's even the old phrase. Now it's BIPOC or whatever. So they made it for minorities, and they thought the Latino audience, which they really want, was going to go see this, and they didn't go see this. And the Latino audience went and saw Conjuring instead, because the horror movies get a huge following in the Latin community. So anyone who wants Latino audience should be making The Conjuring and should be making Quiet Place, and not this thing that's pandering to them.
Yeah, It's nuts that this is it's weird that the funny part of this is that it doesn't surprise me anymore. None of this stuff surprises me. It used to surprise me. It used to be like, what? What are you doing? And now it's just like, oh, this.
Yay. Sigh.
They don't, I don't know. It's weird.
Well, it's also the death knell of this is all academic nonsense, right? And this is the death knell of academia as well, because
who's even going to these? Who's going to these?
Dumb people?
I wouldn't want to go to these. It looks like I'd rather watch paint dry.
I think I'd rather gouge my eyes out.
I'd rather watch paint dry. It's less painful.
Oh, yeah, good point. But, less eventful.
Yeah.
But just seriously, how much longer can this go on?
It's going to hit it's eventually, everybody keeps saying it's going to hit like a stopping point at some point. But I see signs of it, and then you see a sign of it, you're like, yes, finally, and then suddenly it's like, nope.
Yeah, because woke is a virus, and when it kills the host, it jumps to another host. So it's killed Star Wars, right? And now Star Wars is trying to somehow essentially resurrect itself, right? And it's moved on now. It's moved on to all these other things. It's moved on to Lord of the Rings. It's moved on to He-Man. It's moved on to all this stuff, and it's going to destroy those, and it's going to keep moving on. It's a virus, and all we can do is build up from the damage it creates. And so they're trying to do that with Star Wars. After it destroys Lord of the Rings, it'll be screwed for a generation, and then hopefully the next generation is going to resurrect it. That's all we can do.
So there's one franchise that I've heard them talking about getting into, but they haven't been able to. And if they do, he's
going to commit crimes.
I'm going to do something. I don't know what it is yet,
but
I'm going to do something. And that would be my favorite franchise, Back to the Future. If they touch that, I am going to get so angry.
Yeah,
things will happen. About that. You're hearing rumors that they want to touch that one?
Yep, they already do. They've mentioned a couple times they want to touch it and
reboot Back to the Future.
But the people
Marty McFly is a girl. Is that what's coming? Is a black girl?
I don't know. They'll make Doc turn out to be a fraud
and trans and we'll meet Doc as a woman today, and we'll go back in time when Doc was a man, right?
I don't know.
Who knows? Who cares? So long as they don't touch it, my husband will be happy.
They probably will do that. They probably will actually do that. Oh my God, they probably will actually.
Yes, probably because you just gave them the idea.
Don't give them ideas. At least if you're going to charge them for it.
Yeah, as long as they don't touch Back to the Future, my husband will be happy.
Yeah, but Viking says as long as Bob Gale's they want to. Yeah, they've been saying that they want to, and someone's been like, nope.
But it's like the Christopher Tolkien thing. When that guy's out, they'll try it. But hopefully by then the virus will have burned out. After it's destroyed most of the major franchises. I do believe the next decade, like I said, the ending of the club and the resurrection of our old things. I mean, they're damaged. I mean, it's Humpty Dumpty, right? I mean, Star Wars will be rebuilt. It'll just be Humpty Dumpty, and you're just going to do your best to put it back together again.
I don't think they could ever put back together Doctor Who for me.
What I want to know is how Humpty Dumpty didn't end up with his yolk spilled.
They drained him of it. That's what they did. They drain it. They stick a straw in first, and they drain it all out.
I just remember reading some kind of children's rhyme that said he should have been hard-boiled.
That would have made it easier.
I always assumed he was hard-boiled because he was always looked like a hard-boiled egg, right, in the drawing.
No, he was just an egg. So I was always wondering, when they're saying they couldn't put him back together, is that because all of his innards spilled out? I mean, innards are very hard to clean.
Are we really discussing this?
Sorry, you mentioned Humpty Dumpty, and that suddenly just started my need to talk about gore. Sorry, I apologize.
My very first. You talked about you wrote a horror movie. My very first movie that got me my first.
I mean, the script is still in progress. I haven't continued the script since the class, but I based it off of another manuscript that I wrote back in high school. And I actually have to say that the screenplay I wrote based off of it, which has technically a changed story to it, is a lot better.
Then that's a good thing. That means you're increasing your craft and you're developing it further. So what I was saying, the very first script.
I've definitely noticed the evolution to my writing over the last few years, especially during college.
Yeah, it's been. But yeah, if they touch Back to the Future, I'm gonna get pissed because that's my favorite franchise. I've watched the cartoon that very few people know exists. I've played the video game that was a continuation of the story. And if they touch that, I am going to get so mad.
He will officially riot.
No, contrary to popular belief, on Twitter, I try my best to not get angry.
Yeah.
I find that when I get angry, people just go, see, there you are. You're exactly what I said you would be. Haha. So instead, I just kind of tell them, something else.
I rate your insult 2 out of 10. Please do better.
That's my go-to. They hate that. But
well, you've always been gracious on Twitter. I've seen you and interacting with a lot of clowns, and you've always been gracious. So.
Yeah, but Viking's seen the cartoon. Yeah, the cartoon was really nice, especially since it was where Bill Nye the Science Guy got his start.
Mm-hmm.
So, which many people don't necessarily know. But again, if they start messing with Back to the Future and doing anything like trans this or we're going to make this person a woman, I'm not going to hold back on my comments. I'm going to be really mean.
It's probably going to get you banned from Twitter.
That will happen eventually.
There'll be many more crises before that day comes. Maybe that day won't come. So there's a lot more garbage ahead of us that you're going to be able to focus on for the next couple of years at least. I think we've got basically, hopefully by midway through this decade, by like 2025, we'll be in a better place. I think we have to burn through, the next 2 to 3 years of them just the virus has to burn itself out, the woke virus, and it's beginning, but it's a process, because it means you're going to have people that can't admit they were wrong. At least they'll never acknowledge in Hollywood they were wrong, but you have to give them a way out of the cocktail party circuit where they have to keep saying the same old garbage that they know doesn't work, and that's going to take time.
Yeah.
On that note, I have about another 10 minutes or so. So, is there any last topics you want to talk about before we wind down?
Were there any other topics we wanted to discuss?
Well, this may take longer than 10 minutes, but there was something I wanted to bring up because I was curious. I was curious, Cameron, what your take is on what qualities you deem like makes a character, because Hollywood seems to have lost that,
insight.
Knowledge. And because of that, most characters now, as we know, kind of go with the Mary Sue formula. They're super powered, they do everything.
Or with the diversity formula.
So what would you say
where they're victims who need to be helped? Yeah. Well, I mean, it would take, I've taught classes, I've taught multiple day seminars at universities on this, so I won't be able to do that. But what we all need to do is we need to go back and read the classic sources. People talk about Joseph Campbell and The Face of the Hero. But that's not even it. You go all the way back to Aristotle. I think people should read on Poetics, which Aristotle wrote, in 300 BC, right? On Poetics, essentially lays out the modern storytelling 3-act structure and character arc. And so Aristotle understood human nature very well. That's why he's Aristotle. And he laid out the journey of the character, which is a journey of overcoming obstacles and weaknesses and finding their own strength, which is our journey as human beings. For most of us, right? The reason that has been abandoned for the Mary Sue is that the current people running the club are of a generation that hasn't worked for anything, right? They're a generation that they're the descendants of the people that founded Hollywood, and they've been living off the largesse of that for multiple generations. So they're not entrepreneurs. They are people that had everything handed to them on a silver platter, right? And so they don't understand the idea of overcoming obstacles and struggle. And to them, that's something that is actually quite repulsive to them, because it makes them feel inadequate when I remember once I was, in a meeting with one of these in the club people, right? Powerful figure at CBS. I'll only say that. And so he was asking me about some of my journey. And so I told him about my obstacles growing up in Brooklyn and all the stuff I had to overcome, and then going to college and then getting a law degree and an MBA and all this stuff. And he actually stopped me. He had asked me to give my story, and I gave it to him. And he stopped me, and he actually said, "Okay, just stop. You're making me feel inadequate." Because he's a dude who had the right family connections. Family been the generation of Hollywood for a couple of generations. He's working as a powerful person inside of CBS. So he was just making small talk, thinking and then he heard my journey from random Pakistani Muslim guy from Brooklyn with no connections, overcoming this obstacle and that, and that made him feel really small. And by the way, I was meeting for a job on a major CBS show, and that was it. That was the end of I didn't get the job because I held a mirror up to him of his own inadequacy.
That's why, funny enough, you mentioned holding a mirror to him. That's why in my bio on Twitter, it says professional mirror holder. It's because
he just says, "Here, take a look at yourself." Smash.
Well, you're a mystic then. You're a Kabbalist at heart, because all mystics are mirror holders. So that's good stuff. So yeah. So but that's what the character journey is. It's the only character journey that matters. And we are at the end of an age right now. It's like we are the characters of Lord of the Rings. We're essentially the end of the third age, right? And we're watching the collapse of the world that we know. And it's not going to be pleasant. It wasn't pleasant for any of those characters. We're actually Frodo and Sam and Merry and Pippin and all those people. That's who we are, right? And we're going to have to go into Mordor, which is what we're doing here on, in social media, on Twitter, and putting our hopes and beliefs out there and trying to fight for what we care about in entertainment. We're going into Mordor. And I do believe that eventually the one ring of the club of mediocre people that's running the industry right now will be destroyed. They'll destroy themselves, right? They'll fall into the pit, and then we've got to rebuild the world. But, it's not going to be easy. What happens to Frodo at the end of their journey? He's broken. He's lost a finger. He's psychologically damaged. He's lost essentially part of his soul to the ring. and the only way is he just leaves it to everybody. He leaves it to the next generation. And gets on a boat and gets the hell out of here. That's what he does, right? That might be what we do. We are the people fighting the battle right now, and maybe your kids that will resurrect Hollywood after we fight this battle.
So either that or the boat represents like maybe a rocket ship, and we'll all just get on that.
Yes.
Well, in the Silmarillion, that's the whole thing. Is the boat is actually the western lands of the Valar. They are in another dimension, right? You're actually leaving the Earth to go there. That's what the West is. You're actually going through a veil that pushes you out of the planet and onto another dimension. That's where it is.
Well, I meant to read the Silmarillion, but I haven't.
Oh, you got to. It's
haven't gotten a chance.
It's one of the greatest books ever written.
It's the one book missing from my Lord of the Rings that I got it from my grandmother. It was printed in the 60s.
Yeah, it is. It's huge. It's huge. I mean, it's like the Odyssey or the Iliad. It's a massive epic. It covers millions of years of the history.
Odyssey and the Iliad are pretty good.
Yeah. And so, but it's great because most of the characters are immortals. They're either these gods like the Valar, or they're the elves or whatever. So you'll have the same character going over a million-year journey, right? But it is you can follow it, and it is really incredible.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I try to do my characters. All my characters go through struggles when I write them because I don't believe in the Mary Sue. Yeah, some of my characters can be a little overpowered, but I do give them limits and I give them weaknesses so they're balanced out.
And they earn their power. That's the thing.
Oh, yeah, definitely. I make them earn it
anymore. Hollywood doesn't do that.
Yeah, I make them earn it, and I make them work hard. When if they just have too much, I make them work hard to control it.
Look, I studied religion in college, and you guys see I post about religion, whatever, on Twitter a lot because I'm not just my own religion. I just studied world religions, and that was my major in college, and it helped me so much in Hollywood because it taught me the great storytelling. You've got somebody, you have an overpowered character like Moses, but he's not overpowered. He's a guy who is an orphan, who's leading a false identity. He kills somebody. He's on the run from his own family, which is the Pharaoh. He gets in the desert. He ends up, doing, he has these adventures with his Midianite wife, and then he hears a voice in the desert, and he's got all these magical powers, but he doesn't know what to do with them, and he has a speech impediment. He's so lacks confidence in this job he's been given. He's like, can you send my brother with me? And then he's got a bunch of people that when he arrives to save them are really ungrateful and don't believe in him, right? And by the end of his journey, he never even makes it to where he's trying to get to. So
that is true. He died. He did die. Yeah, he did die before he got to see the Promised Land.
Yeah. It's an interesting thing because in the Jewish tradition, he passed away on that Mount Nebo, and he, which is just outside of the Holy Land. And in the Islamic tradition, his body was actually transported by the angels into this. So there's a place in, right by the Sea of Galilee, which I visited when I went to Israel like 2 years ago, which is an old Islamic mosque where the Muslims believe Moses is buried there, but the Jews say no, he's buried on the mountain outside. So it's an interesting little thing. But again, we decided we wanted a better ending to the story. But at least he gets buried in the land.
That's fair enough.
That's fair.
That is actually fair.
That's tragic an ending. Eventually, in the Muslim version of it, he gets buried in the land.
Yeah, I think Jewish lore has a lot of tragic endings.
Yeah, it's paradigms, right? How we tell our stories are paradigms, and
yes.
But I bring all that up because why does the story of Moses unite three religions? And half the planet believes in that story. Is not a mythical story; is a real historical event, right? And because it's such a powerful story, and because this guy is being thrown into this incredible situation, he remains human and flawed throughout the whole situation, and in over his head, and he's a hero. So that's storytelling.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I definitely agree.
Yeah, it's something that Hollywood kind of needs to get back in touch with, especially. And hopefully, eventually, either they will, or, as you said, eventually, through time, the club will crumble and then,
implode.
Then new people will pick up the pieces.
Yeah,
I'd be happy to be one of those new people.
Get out of here. I just want to get on the boat and go. I'm done. I'm just
let's get on that rocket.
My finger, it broke me. I'm done.
Let's get on that rocket and meet up with Space Snake.
That's a joke that he won't get.
Okay, fair. Sorry. Inside joke in our channel.
It's okay. So hopefully your channel becomes huge and a lot of people get the inside joke. That's what I wish for you. So
Amen. Thank you.
We appreciate it. We're still new to it, but we're chugging away.
Yeah.
And you can do it. Look, I've been following, I found the YouTube community after The Last Jedi when I was desperately trying to find anyone who understood my pain from watching that movie. And all these characters like Geeks and Gamers and Abu Nas and all these people, they were nobodies when I started watching them. They had like a couple hundred followers, and now like Geeking Gamers like hundreds of thousands of followers or whatever. And and Abu Nas has become this major sort of influential figure. And these are all people that started off where you guys are. I watched them. I was one of the early subscribers, and I watched them. And you guys have a lot of really good stuff to say, and really a nice vibe between you two. So keep building it.
Sweet.
Thanks.
So in other words, you're saying that because we had you on our stream, we're probably going to get big?
No.
Well, I wouldn't. My ego would love to say that, but I believe I'm part of a stream of stuff that is coming for you.
Yeah, I hear you.
All right, guys. On that note, I should head out. So thank you, and very much honored to come onto your channel to be number 2. I'm the Buzz Aldrin of this. Couldn't be Neil Armstrong. That's okay.
Thank you for agreeing to come on.
All good. I hope I can come on again. So just drop me a message whenever you'd like me to come on. And there's always going to be some kind of crazy topic. This industry, like I said, we're the war of the ring has begun, and so
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
All right, guys.
All right.
God bless. We'll talk soon. Take care.
You as well.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you. All right, everybody, we're gonna wrap up now. Thanks everybody for coming.
Indeed.
And yeah, we'll have a video out later today at some point.
Yes,
Hopefully.
we will. Until then, see ya.